Hi, my name is Sam and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's ramble is going to be a very geeky one, as I want to tell you all about my passion for languages. And if there are any language enthusiasts out there watching this, I would love to know what you think of my fairly unconventional ideas. Speaking of which, it would be great if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel and leave a little comment, as it helps me immensely. And now let's get started. Just to give you a bit of background, I live in London, but I was born and grew up in the north of Italy. In Italy now you start learning English as a second language from the age of 6, as soon as you start primary school. When I was a child, I started in my second year when I was 7. Then you do English in primary school. Then in Italy we have middle school where you learn English, and I think it's compulsory for all middle schools to teach a second foreign language. I studied French, but I think Spanish is becoming more popular. Then you go to secondary school. Now, based on the kind of specialization that you choose, unless you decide to study languages, you only carry on with English. If you study languages like I did, so I specialized in languages, I did English, Latin, then I picked German and then Spanish. I think, well, at the time, I think German, Spanish, French were the most popular, and if not the only languages offered as foreign languages. I think nowadays maybe a bit of Arabic and potentially Asian languages are offered as well, but don't quote me on that because I haven't been in the school system for 14 years. So what I did in secondary school, I did English from my first year to my final year. It's 5 years of secondary school. I did German for the full 5 years, and then I did Spanish from the 3rd year to my 5th year, so 3 years of Spanish. Luckily, Spanish is very similar to Italian. So although the grammar, if you want to be technically accurate in Spanish, it's not just English, it's not just Italian with an S at the end, but obviously it's much easier than a completely different language like German, for example. I absolutely love languages, to the point where my dream was either to become a dancer or an English teacher. I have a whole video where I talk about being a teacher, and I will link it here because I did become a teacher in the end. So I wanted to be either a dancer or an English teacher, and then I decided to become an actor, obviously. Then I came to London to study acting, but also, which is extremely important to today's topic, while I was in secondary school, although I specialised in languages, I fell in love with maths, and actually my options were becoming an actor or studying maths at university. I did get into maths university just for the fun of it, because I knew that I was going to study acting anyway, but I did it for the fun of it and just to have a fallback plan, because I would have studied maths back home, and I'm very close to my family, and if it hadn't been for my mum, who actually pushed me to come to London, because she knew that acting was really what I wanted to do, I think I would have stayed and done maths. So it's only thanks to her that I came to London to become an actor. Then, like every performer, I had to work in hospitality, and in the meantime I was tutoring people in English. I was always a tutor my whole life. Even when I was in secondary school, I used to tutor my brother, his friends, my friends. So I then decided to make teaching a bit more official. I got my qualification as a teacher of English as a foreign language. Then I started a YouTube channel, which I will link here, called Englogic, where I teach English and the language learning process through mathematical logic, which is again vital to the whole topic that we're going to tackle today. Now, I don't teach students anymore. I've recently stopped doing my channel, and I'm a full-time singing drag queen, obviously, because that was just the obvious step after being a teacher and potentially a mathematician. But this is me. Now, I absolutely love languages, and the way it started was very weird. So we started English at 7, well, when I was 7, in my second year of school. But obviously in primary school you just learn to say your name, how are you, a few colours, very basic things. And I don't remember this, but my mum still to this day tells me that my English teacher at the time told her that she could tell straight away that I was going to be very good at languages. But I don't know what she saw in me, because again, it's not like we had much of a chance to show our potential in primary school, but she said that from the very get-go. And although obviously what we learned in primary school was very limited, I did love English. Then in secondary school I had a very good teacher, and I really fell in love with English, to the point where, it was between the ages of 11 and 13, and I would do a lot of self-studying. I was a proper geek and a proper swot. So I liked learning a lot. Only the topics that I was interested in, languages being one or two of them. So I just studied a lot on my own. I started watching TV series in English at 11. I mean, that's quite I wouldn't say well impressive, but also it's not something that every 11-year-old would do. And even in secondary school, well, in middle school, I also did French. Now, I like languages in general, so I liked it, of course, but over the years I realised that I don't like Latin languages. I love Latin. I studied Latin in secondary school, and I absolutely loved it. It's pure mathematics, which is why I like languages. But I don't like Latin languages. Don't ask me why. I think it's because they're not mathematically clever and immediate. I don't like the sound, so I don't like Italian, Spanish and French, unfortunately, but I love Germanic languages, English and then German, being the two that I know and that I love. So I'd rather study French than philosophy, of course, but yes, French wouldn't be my first choice as a foreign language. But I had a very good teacher, so it had to be done. Then in secondary school I picked German because I could have picked French, but because I already knew a little bit of French, I thought I would broaden my horizons and learn another language. At first I didn't really know what to make of German, but then I fell in love with it. And then Spanish, I had to do it. I did not like it one bit because it's very Latin. But I had an incredible teacher. So as a teacher myself, I can appreciate the talent in the teaching, at least. So I'm pleased that since I had to learn Spanish, I'm pleased that I had her as my teacher. Now, why do I like languages so much? It's always been the biggest question mark in my life, not only for me but also for my mum, for everyone around me, because I don't just like languages. It's not that I just find them interesting, which I do, but it's I don't really know how to explain it, but I need to speak a foreign language for my brain to be chemically satisfied. When I speak English, which is not my first language, I mean, it feels like my first language, but technically it's not. it makes me happy. It really does. Even a language like Spanish or French, which I don't particularly like, but because it's a foreign language, I'd still rather speak those languages than Italian. Don't ask me why. It's always been, yes, a big topic of discussion. So yes, my brain is chemically satisfied when I speak English, and I like it so much that when I go back home, obviously nobody speaks English because in Italy not many people do, so I have to speak Italian with my family and my friends. And if I spend a long time in Italy, when I come back home here and I start speaking English, I know this sounds psychologically unhealthy, but I can taste English in my mouth, I can savour it in my mouth, and the more I start speaking it again, the better it tastes in my mouth. I don't know how to explain it, but it's amazing. So I really love languages, but then again, it's not just a hobby that I can do without. It's really part of my life, to the point where I decided to move to England so I could speak English on a daily basis, and to make it part of my life, I only speak Italian when I go back home. So with my family and friends, I never speak Italian here. I don't have Italian friends, but yes, a couple, but I know it sounds, again, not healthy, but I never speak Italian. I never tell them I'm Italian, and then if it comes up, I tell them that I am Italian, but I do not want to speak Italian. They can if they want to, but I will only reply in English, because speaking Italian, first of all, it's difficult for me because it is my first language. I grew up speaking Italian, but because I've distanced myself so much from it, it's very hard because I don't know a lot of words. My grammar is chopping and ropey, and I just don't like it, and I can't express myself as fully as I can in English. Now, over the years, I've tried to come to my own conclusion as to why this happens. I think it's because it's my way of escaping. Obviously, I'm gay, and I couldn't be gay back home. So I have a feeling, again, I'm not a psychologist, no, my psychologist never told me this when I was in therapy, but I was very young. Maybe it's my way of escaping the reality that I had back home. So speaking Italian meant that I had to be in Italy. I couldn't be out. I couldn't be myself. And speaking a foreign language is a way for me to be free and to break free. Now, again, it's just a thought. But yes, speaking Italian makes me sad. That's the thing. It's not just like I can't fully express myself, which is true, but it really makes me sad. And on my English channel, I made a video where I spoke Italian a little bit, and the tone of my voice drops. So when I speak Italian, I can't manipulate the language in a way that allows me to express emotions. So now I'm out to everyone in Italy, so it's a bit different, I think. But when I used to go back home and people would ask me how my life in London was, I would say, "Oh yes, I'm very happy," in Italian. "Oh yes, I'm very happy, I really like it there," which sounded, first of all, uninterested on my part and rude, and I felt very uncomfortable because I knew that I came across as rude and uninterested, but it wasn't the case. It's just that I couldn't modulate my voice so that I could convey emotions. It still happens now, but I think it's a bit better. So yes, I'm sure there is something psychological related to all of this, but this is a situation. And what I love about languages is the fact that I can feel them in my bones. Again, this is very metaphysical to explain. So there are some grammar rules or some words that I may not know in any given language. Let's take German because I know it less than English. But for some weird reason, I can sense if I say something and it's wrong. Obviously, if I know the grammar and I know that I've made a mistake, of course it sounds and feels wrong. But even if it's something that I don't technically know, so let's say, as an example, let's say I don't know how to use the present perfect in German, so I say something which doesn't include the present perfect because I don't even know it exists, but in my bones I can feel that what I'm saying is wrong because I should be saying something else. Now, since I don't know the new rule, I can't tell you what it is that I should be saying, but I can tell you that I shouldn't be saying what I'm saying. Or a word. Obviously my vocabulary in German is limited, so I can sort of, I can make myself understood, but I can tell that there is surely a better word that I can use. And obviously, of course, there is always a better word that anyone can use in any language, but it's not about formality or about a different connotation of the word. It's just I can feel that what I use is not technically accurate. So in a German language exam, I would be marked down for the usage of that specific word rather than the actual word that I should use. So I can really feel it in my bones, and it's an amazing feeling, and I can pick languages up very, very easily. I do spend a lot of time studying them, but only because I'm a geek. But technically I wouldn't need to because I just absorb them. I'm not saying any of this to brag, by the way. I mean, this is one of the very few talents that I have, but I don't do anything towards it. Other people can do many more and more useful things than I can. This is one of my very few talents. I do study them because I want to take them to the next level. Obviously, if you just absorb what a teacher tells you in a secondary school, for example, your German will never be C2 level, which is the closest to native that you can get to, simply because in the setting of a secondary school, a teacher doesn't have the time or the resources to teach you those elements. So yes, I do study these things on my own, but if I simply wanted to follow the level that a secondary school can give me, I wouldn't need to study anything, because just by hearing it, I just absorb it. I don't know how, but it's incredible. And this will always shock me. So I'm an English teacher, so I teach English as a foreign language. I teach only advanced English, very mathematical logic, and we'll get to that soon. And obviously as a teacher I have books and materials that I use to, I know the grammar, I know the theory, but obviously I want to solidify, to consolidate what I have, and to have confirmation of the rule that I have ingrained in my brain. And for example, when we as teachers, we teach the present perfect continuous in English, which is I have been doing. So have been doing is called present perfect continuous. The negative is I haven't been doing, but then books will tell you that in the negative we don't tend to use the present perfect continuous. We simply use the present perfect, which is I, instead of I haven't been doing, it's simply I haven't done. So for example, you can say I have been playing tennis for 10 years, which is the present perfect continuous. When you do it in the negative, rather than saying I haven't been playing tennis for 10 years, we prefer saying I haven't played tennis for 10 years, which is the present perfect simple. And all of this is true. And I remember that when I was reading up to prepare my lesson, I came across this rule, and this is a rule that I'm sure I was taught back in school as well, but I just didn't actively remember learning it. And I just remember reading the rule and thinking, oh gosh, it's true. I do this without knowing or remembering the rule, and I do this simply because I've absorbed it so much that it really does feel like second nature to me. And that's something that really blows my mind as a scientist when it comes to languages. The fact that, yes, we say words, we use grammar structures as non-native speakers. Non-native speakers who put a lot of work into learning, not just those foreigners that come to London and think that God will just bless them with the knowledge of English just because they're here. And as a language teacher, I'm very brutal towards students that don't make an effort, but that might be a topic for another ramble. So yes, the fact that I say things in English in terms of vocabulary or grammar or pronunciation that I wasn't taught, or I don't actively remember being taught. I just say them because I've just absorbed them from other native speakers, from TV series. It amazes me to know that my brain can do that. So yes, sometimes I read rules, and I think, yes, I do say that, and I would never say the other thing, but only because I'm used to it, only because I've absorbed it. No one's ever taught me that. Or words. I can't think of an example right now, but yes, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's fascinating. So, what's this connection with mathematics? I realised that, yes, I learn languages very quickly because I see them as a pure example of maths. So I fell in love with maths when I was in secondary school, to the point where I was going to become a mathematician, or at least try to. And the reason why I love maths, and I will probably make a video on this as well, is that it shows how far the brain can stretch and what it can conquer through logic. Now, I know that when you're in school, you have the people that like sciences and maths, and therefore are bad at humanities and languages, or the other way around. But I disagree with this distinction. You know, people say, oh, I'm terrible at languages, but give me numbers and I'm fine. Or, I'm great at languages, but do not give me numbers. I disagree with that because I think they are exactly the same. And why? Mathematics is just a series of rules, very specific rules that you need to follow. And languages are the same. Grammar is mathematics, because as an English teacher, I give you the rules. So the same way I tell you in mathematics that 2 + 3 = 5, there is no way around it, there is no magic, there is no creativity behind it. I tell you that in English, when you want to conjugate a verb, for example, you keep the same form for all persons apart from the third person singular, which is he, she, it, and you add s. So talk becomes I talk, you talk, he talks, we talk, you talk, they talk. There is no magic behind it. It's just an equation that I give you, and you simply need to follow it. And the reason why I speak languages so easily and so well is that I can see their mathematical patterns immediately, and then I use them to create sentences and to give different meanings to sentences. Just like in mathematics, if you just change one symbol or one number, if you know 2 is different from 3, so 2 plus 3 equals 5, but you can't say that 2 plus 2 equals 5. You've just gone from 2 to 3, but that has a massive impact on the result. The same thing happens in languages. In English, it's a little bit harder to brutally see with your eyes because English has no grammar. But if you go to Italian, Spanish, French, the languages with a lot of grammar, even German, you can see that you simply just need to follow rules given to you by the teacher. And most of these rules, when it comes to grammar, there's nothing to understand. So if you ask me, why do we add an S to the third person singular? So why do we say he talks instead of he talk or he talkie? The answer is just because. So there is no answer. The answer is that someone, when they decided to create English as a language, they decided that we need an S. Surely they took that idea from another language, but that's what it is. There is no questioning. You not liking the fact that you need to add an S will not change English. English will not change for you. So you just need to take it as a given. Now, mathematics is slightly different because the fact that 2 plus 3 equals 5, you can demonstrate that. So there is a full thought out reason behind it. But let's just say that 2 plus 3, without going into too much detail, just equals 5. You can't really change that. So once I tell you that, you just need to embrace it and apply it. If you don't want to talk about specific numbers, just the concept of addition means that you take 2 and you put more. So this concept is unquestionable. You can't try to convince me that 2 plus 3 equals 6 because you're multiplying. No, I've told you that plus means adding, and that's the end of that conversation. So my brain can see these patterns, and through logic I can then understand if something is correct or if it's not. So let's say that yes, again, it's a simple example and it's a bit too simple, but the simple fact that you might say he talk instead of he talks, I know that that is wrong because in my brain that goes against the equation given to me, because my brain understands that it doesn't follow the rule that I've had to absorb as an English speaker and student. And German has more grammar. Sometimes I do German language tests online just for the fun of it. I know it's a bit losery of me. And there are some words that I don't know, there are some verbs that I don't know, there are some things that I just don't know because I haven't spoken German for 14 years. But based on the grammar and the logic that I can use, I can sort of guess what at least is wrong. And if I guess it right, usually these tests are multiple choices, I will guess the correct one 90% of the time, potentially without even knowing what the sentence means, but I can use the grammar shown to me to get to the right answer. Again, it doesn't mean that I can speak German at that level, but at least I can pass an exam, and then I will look into why that thing is correct and why the others were not. And even if I don't know the right answer, I can tell you that one option is wrong because it doesn't follow the grammar. Again, I may not know the correct answer because I may not know that grammar bit, but I can tell you that based on what I know, that answer just doesn't work. And I think this is extremely empowering as a language learner. So when I used to have students, I showed them English as a series of mathematical equations, and they loved it because they could see that there was a logic behind it. You know, people say that English has a lot of exceptions. I strongly disagree with anyone that criticizes English for being hard on a grammatical and vocabulary level. Pronunciation is tricky, and there's nothing I can say to defend that. But all my students that complained about how difficult English was, they were met with no sympathy and brutal aggression almost from me, because it's not true. Whether you like English or not, that's beside the point. You are entitled to not like it, but if you're French, if you're Spanish, you can't complain to me that English has too much grammar and too many exceptions, because it's a no-go for me. Do not try that with me, because it won't work. It will only backfire. And I understand that by simply changing one little word or adding a simple vowel, that creates a completely different meaning. And this is another thing that I love about languages, how we can convey a different cerebral and meaning and a different feeling just by changing one letter in a word, or just by changing the position of some words, or just by picking one grammar structure instead of another. A simple thing is that if you say, when he comes home, I will cook, using this will means that at one point in the future he will come home, and after he walks through the door, I will start cooking. But if you say, when he comes home, I cook, so if we go from I will cook to I cook, the difference is that you've just removed one little word, which is will, but the difference in meaning is massive, because the second sentence means that this happens every single day. So every time he comes home, I cook. Whereas the first one means that tomorrow when he comes home, I will cook that one time. And I love this about languages, and it happens in every single language. So when my students complain about the fact that only English has these little things, it's not true, because I could keep you here forever with other examples in other languages. Now, pronunciation is also a big thing for me. I specialise in pronunciation as an English teacher, and I love pronunciation. It fascinates me so much, the fact that you can just change the position and the shape of your lips, of your tongue by 1 millimeter, and that will give you a different sound. Blows my mind. English pronunciation is terrible, not because of the sound that it has, but because there is very little correspondence between spelling and pronunciation. And again, I'm not here to try to defend that, because it's true, although there are rules that we can use that most students decide to not even look into, or to completely dismiss, to completely ignore. They don't even take the time to see if there is a rule there, but that's specific to English, but we're talking about languages in general. And I love it. I just love the fact that we can create different sounds. And what blows my mind on a scientific level, in a way that it's a bit overwhelming because I just can't understand it. Also, I'm not a linguist, I'm not a scientist, so I've never really studied any of this. Maybe there are answers to these questions that I have, but I don't know that they're there. What I love about pronunciation specifically is the fact that I can produce sounds that ultimately mean nothing to me. So I was born speaking Italian. Italian is my first language, and now I'm speaking to you in a language that feels like a first language to me, but technically it's not. So English to my Italian brain is just a sequence of nonsensical sounds that engenders nothing in me. You know, when I say the sound th doesn't exist in Italian. So not only am I fascinated by the fact that I've managed to change my brain into physically producing a sound that doesn't belong to my being, or if I say or, these sounds do not exist in Italian. But the fact that I can manipulate these sounds and put them into sequences that help me create meaning so that you can understand what I'm saying, whether you're a native speaker of English or not, that blows my mind. I can't believe that's possible. I don't understand how that is humanly possible. The fact that, again, I've gone from my Italian sounds, my Italian words, and changed them into a code that, again, technically means nothing to me. It does now because I'm so used to English that it does mean something. So if I hear English words, obviously they do engender an emotion, a reaction in me, but technically they shouldn't because they're not Italian. And what I love is the fact that when you speak your native language, you don't realise that this is happening. So when you hear someone talking to you in your native language, whatever they say engenders a reaction, a feeling, something in you, but you don't stop to analyse it. You don't stop to try to understand why, because it's just your native language and you're more focused on the meaning than the technical science behind the pronunciation and the grammar and the vocabulary they've used. But as a speaker of a foreign language, not everyone focuses on that either, but I think that's where the beauty of languages comes in. So if you do focus on those things, you will be literally blown away by the mystery the languages are, at least to me, again based on the fact that I don't have any scientific knowledge of what goes on in your brain. And the fact that, I can sort of accept and I can sort of wrap my head around the fact that whilst in Italian I call, I call this vaso. I can understand that in Italian we say vaso. In English, well, it's fairly similar, we say vase. And I can sort of accept the fact that if I say vaso to an English speaker, they won't understand because I'm using a word that they are not used to, so it engenders nothing in them. Or I can sort of accept the fact, and I can sort of see that if I say chair in English, so whilst I say chair in English, I say Stuhl in German. So a native German speaker is only used to the word Stuhl, and if you don't say Stuhl, they don't understand. So I can see how different languages work on a simple basis of individual words. But what fascinates me, again in a way that almost makes me not worried, but it makes me feel so small and incompetent towards the magic of the world, is that we can also express concepts. Now, fair enough, I say vase, I say chair, and I know that if I want you to understand those words in another language, I need to say them to you in your language, because otherwise you won't do anything with these objects. But the fact that we can talk about conditionals, so I can say, if I hadn't talked to him, I would not have found out that this had happened. Now, there is nothing material, there is nothing tangible, there is nothing physical in that. And the fact that I can use all these weird sounds and all these weird words to create a concept about something that didn't happen. So the third conditional, so if I had done it or if I hadn't done it, is about something that impossible in the past. And every language in the world has conditionals. So the concept is the same. The structure of how you create these conditionals is different from language to language, but the concept is the same. So the fact that I can tell you, if I hadn't talked to him, which means I talked to him. So impossible means that everything that you say is the opposite of reality. If I say, if I hadn't talked to him, that's negative, but that means that you talked to him. I wouldn't have found out, that is negative, which means that you did find out. So the fact that I can do this in any language, never mind from your native language to a foreign one, but even native English speakers, the fact that they can communicate these emotional concepts through sounds, through words, I can't comprehend it, but it excites me a lot. And when you can do that with different languages, I'm stunned, I'm speechless. Or simply, even if you just describe what you did this morning. If I say I woke up at 8 and I had breakfast at 8:15, I'm just putting random meaningless sounds together in a sequence that your brain recognizes and that you can understand. But in this case, you're not just simply talking about one word like vase, you're talking about a whole mental image that I'm giving you. So by using these random sounds in this specific and aimed and targeted sequence, your brain creates a picture of what happened to you this morning. I can't believe that happens. And again, this is beside the point of foreign languages, the simple fact that two native English speakers can give each other these images just by using words and sounds. I wish I knew how that can be possible. I mean, it is possible, but I wish I knew what happens inside your brain, inside your soul when this happens. The fact that you can understand what I'm saying, and the fact that if I were trying to convey these same concepts, so if I was saying this whole 50-minute video in Italian, most of you wouldn't be able to understand. But the concepts would be the same, but I would simply be using a different code that your brain is not trained to decipher. And oh my god, I don't know, it excites me, it scares me, it's amazing. So that's why I like languages, because I like the idea of being able to do that. And it's an enigma. It's something that will always interest me. On that note though, I have no interest in learning more languages, because for me, speaking a foreign language doesn't mean that I can order a cappuccino when I'm on holiday. For me, speaking a language is being at native level, as close to native as possible, which is why I will never learn a new foreign language, because I don't even have time to master, in my case, German. So if I ever have time to learn a language, it will be German, because I want to be able to speak it fully. Knowing a few words here and there in Chinese means nothing to me. Not because Chinese is irrelevant, it's just any language, so it has nothing to do with the language. It's the fact that, or sometimes, I have watched in the past videos of people that learn a new language in 3 weeks, and they learn the most common 100 words. And then they learn stock sentences, so they learn how to order a coffee. For me, that is not learning language. The fact that I can repeat a stock sentence without knowing why, and that's about the logic that I mentioned before. There is a reason why we say everything we say in every language. There is nothing left to chance. And learning stock sentences, for example, can I have a coffee? That to me means that you're just good at mimicking sounds, but you don't know why, and that doesn't empower you, because you can memorize can I have a coffee, but then the moment you want to ask for sugar, if you don't know how to say sugar, you can't say can I have, can I have sugar, but also you may not even know that can I have is a form of request, because you just learn the stock sentence, can I have a cappuccino? That means someone will bring me a cappuccino. But I want to know the logic behind it, so if I need to order sugar, if I need to order something else, based on the elements that I know, I can do that. So I can manipulate the language to my advantage, and that's what I want. So I think that's the difference between someone who likes and understands languages and someone who just learns them because they have to. People that don't care about languages, they just like to learn stock sentences and stock structures that will get them by. I want to, and they end up being manipulated and crushed by the language. I want to be able to manipulate and crush the language myself. I want to do the opposite, so I want to be in control. I don't want the language to be in control of me, and by learning languages the way I do, I can do that. And that's the way I used to teach my students, because I wanted to give them the tools to be able to get by on their own with the tools that they have. Also, if I say can I have if I learn the sentence can I have a cappuccino, the waiter will reply to you, and what will you do? If you're not trained, if they don't say the specific stock sentence that your little book has taught you, what will you do? Also, they will have their own pronunciation, their own accent. What will you do? So I want to be able to have enough logic to understand what they say, because they could say all sorts of things rather than the simple "of course," which is what you would expect from a book. They might say, "Oh, we're out of milk." Well, what do you do then? If they use the structures "we are out of milk," which your book didn't prepare you for. So again, that is not learning a language or speaking a language for me, but I know this is just my own personal point of view. So yes, I think I've said enough in just 50 minutes as always. So let me know in the comments what languages you like, if I've made myself clear, because I'm not sure I have, based on the fact that I don't have any visual examples to show you. But if you are interested in this sort of view of languages, I will link down below my English channel, so you can get a better feel and understanding of what I mean. And in the meantime, I will let you go to sleep, and I will see you soon.